Hello, I'm your host, Marcus Garrett. Every week I have entertaining conversations with your favorite influencers and entrepreneurs. Now, let's get started with this week's show. And this is the drop. If you're a returning listener, please leave a quick 5-star review and rep for your city in the reviews. And yes, that includes my people from across the pond. Season 3 of the Marcus Garrett Show is focused on my journey from employee to entrepreneur. And today we have Will Rainey, and this is his drop. Will has been helping parents teach their kids about money and wealth. And today we're going to talk about the importance of teaching kids about money, how to make it fun, and the simple action parents can take. Welcome to the show, Will.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And here on the Life After Debt segment, because living life and living debt-free do not have to be mutually exclusive, we're going to get started with your questions. And you're an award-winning blogger and author of the best-selling book, Grandpa's Fortune Fables, Fun Stories to Teach Kids About Money. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yes, sure. So the book's kind of aimed at sort of kids reading age 7 to 13, but it's all about trying to take some of the key lessons that most parents or adults have never been taught, but make it sort of fun and for kids. And it's one of those ones that it's not taught in schools, which seems crazy to me. But it came from the inspiration of this. One of my favorite personal finance books is called The Richest Man in Babylon, which you've already heard of. But I tried to read it to my kids because I learned so many lessons from that. But the sort of language of it made it hard for them to understand. So I wanted to try and do something myself. So yeah, I created a book. I wanted to cover bits about earning money, about saving money, importantly about growing money, so investing, but also teaching kids about debt and scams and gambling, so that when they become adults and they've got more money to look after themselves, they kind of already know this stuff, and they're kind of ready to face the world as an adult, knowing more than what most adults know about money, and therefore be able to live a financially healthy and wealthy life.
To that point, I found something fascinating while researching your book here. You say that kids form most of their financial habits as early as age 7. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so there's some research from Cambridge University in England that did a big study on how we form money habits and what age. And they found that most of our money habits, what we have as adults, many of them were set by the age of 7. And that kind of shocked me when I first read about it, thinking I didn't really know much about money. I can't remember my parents talking to me about money. I don't think I really had much money at that time. How does that come about? But then the more research that you do into it, when children are that young, they're observing and taking everything. And so when kids sort of see that money for the first time, they see parents go to the shops and spend money. Whenever they get given some money, maybe the tooth fairy or birthday or something, many adults will say to them, what are you going to go and buy with that money? So what's happening in the mind is that it's going money, spending, money, spending, money, spending. And then that kind of gets hardwired. And they're saying a lot of that wiring kind of comes together by the age of 7. So if all of the kids have ever seen is that money's for spending, by the time they get older and older, that's got to be rewired into sort of, we actually have to save some of this money, or we can give this money to help others. And later in life that we kind of learn those different pieces about saving and giving and investing, the harder it is for our minds to sort of make that a constant action. And so it's so important that we teach kids about saving, investing, giving from a young age, so we can form those habits at that young age.
To that point, I'm going to have a question here. I hope it's not challenging, but what about the parent who themselves has not been taught these lessons? So how do you teach a child when you have not been taught these things, or what would be the first step?
Yeah, no, so that's a very, and that's the vicious cycle that we're in. We need, as it's not being taught in schools, children are learning their money behaviors and habits from their parents, and they've got that from their parents, and at no point has anyone been taught. And that's why it's so important that schools and parents sort of take action. So, right, if I want my child to be financially healthy and wealthy, what do I need to do? And actually, it's so important about habits rather than knowledge. And that's why when it says about the age of 7. It's not about how much knowledge does your child have at that age. It's about what actions they take. And all parents, regardless of how much money they have, how good they are with money, what kind of financial background their family had going generations back, all parents can help their children start to save from a young age. And if every time that a child gets given some money, doesn't matter how small, they save just a little bit of that, every time, that becomes a habit. And I think that's just such a powerful thing for a child to learn. And again, it just becomes a habit. So every time when they get older and they get more money, I'm just going to save a little bit first. And then when they get older, a little bit more. And clearly the amounts of money will get bigger and bigger. And they'll get to see that those little bits sort of add up. And it's so, so powerful because they're learning a savings habit. And unfortunately, that's kind of a scarcity in today's world. As I say, most children aren't taught to save, or parents are sort of saving on their behalf, but not making the child save directly. So the more that we can get, and again, it doesn't matter about how much knowledge you as a parent have, you can help your child to do that one little habit, and that can be the start of changing their whole financial future, because then everything builds onto that.
I appreciate that. That's great context. I have a question, and I wish I remembered the original. It actually had come from a high school student, but I hear this a lot from high school students, and I struggle with this as well. So I'm going to throw the challenge at you. What do you do, or say, I should say, to children who are like, well, global warming, pandemic, they're living pretty dark times, and they're like, I don't want to say there's no future, but they struggle to see a future to save for. What do you reply to that, or how do you compensate for that?
Oh, that's a deep one. Yeah. Well, I think that comes not just down to money, that's beyond money, but I generally believe that everyone should go into the world saying, well, what's the benefit of being all doom and gloom? We have to go into life with a positive mindset and think, right, what do I want to do with my life? I can save some money and hope there's going to be a better future. And I think that's always going to be a more positive outcome. If everyone thinks like that, that's more likely to happen. And a similar sort of tweak on that thing is most people who are in debt. So there's a lot of adults who are in debt today, and they're like, well, I'm not going to get out of this. I might as well just get myself into more debt and enjoy the short term. Like, I'm never going to get out of this. Whereas actually it's a mindset, and money is such a mindset piece. It's, again, more so than just knowing lots of stuff. It's about, right, how do I feel about money, and can I do something positive? And so for children, for parents, adults, doesn't matter which age, if you believe that doing the right thing with money and saving a little bit going to help you have options, freedom, flexibility, at some point you have to be patient. And so for those children, those high school people, the children, I think it's always a case of have a positive mindset and think of a positive future. And in that positive future, you want to have the resource, savings, the finances to have options and flexibility. And to do that, you need to have some savings. And it doesn't have to be, so one of the kind of link to that is this kind of, oh, you only live once mindset. Well, that's fine. And I'm not saying that you should save all of your money. And I think this is a big trap people get in. They're like spending versus saving. And my kind of view is that it's a bit of both. All I'm saying is spend most of it, just save a little bit and do that first. And if you just start doing that and getting that a little bit in, then you can still spend most of your money. Just make sure you save just a little bit. And even regardless of what you do, think about the future. As long as you're saving a little bit, you're prepared for both outcomes, whether it's doom and gloom or positive. Savings is going to balance it out.
Great response, and one in which I was still going into the future. I'm going to pay some bills around here, so let me go ahead and bring on the mood lighting. I'm going to do a read in and then let's talk a little bit about the book here. In 3, 2, 1. The Marcus Garrett Show is made possible by our partners like Personal Finance Club. Personal Finance Club, how to start investing and build wealth with index fund is just 8 steps in less than 15 minutes. Jeremy's course taught me how to start investing, choose the right investment, and open a new index fund with Vanguard. You can hear our discussion with Jeremy and myself, or learn more about his online program at themarcusgarrett.com/investwith/personal finance Club. I know it's a mouthful, so you'll see a link on your video if you're watching on YouTube, or you can find a direct link in your show description below. And now, back to the show. There'll be like music playing and everything like that. So, by the end of your fascinating book, you say kids will learn from Grandpa's Fortune Fables. It features a 13-year-old girl named Gail sharing her grandpa's adventures to a faraway island when he learned how to look after his own money and become a very wealthy man. What are some of the lessons that Gail learns from her grandfather?
Yeah, so at the start, she learns about not trying to make money really quickly. So Grandpa, he starts when he doesn't have much money. His family's relatively poor, but he sees a newspaper saying that gold has been found on a faraway island. And so he's like, I'm going to get rich quick. Gets on the boat, goes to this faraway island, and finds out it's a bit of a scam. And so he's kind of left on this island without any gold. And he's got to kind of make his own way. So she first of all learns not to fall for anything that says they're going to get money quickly. It's generally likely to be a scam. But then she learns about how Grandpa sort of survived and learned. And so one of the key bits I use in this book, and I have a blog and a website, and I use this kind of common theme, which is to try and think of money like seeds. And so for kids, they get straight away, they can see that seeds can be given away, and that's just like spending. But what they want to do is they understand, right, what about if I plant this seed? What happens then? And so by doing that, this is teaching them about saving it. And if they put that seed away and plant it, and that means invest it, that will grow. And over a long period of time, if that tree grows, it'll produce more seeds, which they can plant, produce more trees, and have this kind of financial forest. And I always say that if you picture yourself having savings that's growing, you've got this financial forest, they're the people who are financially healthy and financially wealthy. And that's what I want all kids. So essentially, a lot of the stories are building up about how Grandpa is on this faraway island, has no money, has to start looking after himself. So he kind of grows his own forest. And so she learns a bit about earning money. So Grandpa takes his seeds, grows these fruit trees, gives them, sells them to get some chickens, to get some cows, so gets the milk and the eggs, which he can sell and get more money, and becomes kind of wealthy through doing that. And he kind of applies that to the real world. But she also learns about investing. So in the book, Grandpa takes her to one of her favorite restaurants, which is called the Burger Shack. And she realizes that he owns a part of that. And he sort of tells her, look, every time someone's buying a burger, some of that money is mine. And because I own a piece of a Burger Shack. And she's like, wow, that's amazing. And yeah, so he goes through and he says, not just this company, but all these other companies around there, that every time someone gives some money to those companies, I get a little bit richer. And so she learns about how money can grow, because when people spend, that money goes to companies. Those companies are owned by people and they're the investors. So she wants to start investing her money and growing. But one of the key ones that Grandpa really teaches, and it's not stressed enough, I don't think, is about patience. And he says, when you're trying to grow a forest, a tree doesn't grow overnight. It takes many, many years. And that's the same thing with money. And so there's a character in the book called Richie Raccoon, and he kind of wants to grow his own forest, but he hasn't got any patience. So he starts trying to find shortcuts. So that's where he starts trying to gamble. So he plays a game and kind of loses. And he also tries to borrow, i.e. using some debt, and again, comes out worse off. And it's all because he doesn't want to wait. And so he's trying to use these fun stories, analogies, to really help teach kids these really important money lessons, but in a way that kind of sticks with them, a bit like Aesop's Fables, but sort of the money version of that.
So we're going to hit this again at the end, but you had mentioned you have a blog and a website. Can you drop your blog and website?
Yeah, so my website is bluetreesavings.com. And so on there, I have a weekly blog, which covers kind of a different money topic. So that's the blog's kind of aimed at helping parents teach their kids about money. So whilst the book's directly for children, my website and work is all trying to help parents teach their kids. And so many of the stories that I come up with for Grandpa's Fortune Fables, some of them were written a few years ago because I was just talking about one topic in my blog. I said, this is how I taught my children when I was putting them to bed last night. And I'll write the short story and say, you can use this. And so after a number of years, I had a number of these short stories, and therefore the book came to life.
And that was going to be my second question. For what feedback are you getting from children? Like, what are they saying and how are they connecting to the book?
Yeah, so the children are, and that's the great thing about the book and the feedback is that they're really enjoying it, because one bit they're really enjoying is it's got this thing called the Grandpa's Mystery Code. So at the end of each chapter, there's like a little puzzle quiz. And if they get that correct, so it's like a multiple choice, it's got a letter, and they've got to try and get a letter, find the right letter across all the book to solve the code. So kids love that. But the most important feedback is that from parents saying about what their child said is, oh, my child now wants to do this. So it's an action-based feedback, which I think is fantastic, because with any self-help book, they're only as good as the actions you take after reading them. So when I hear parents saying, my kid loved the book, she's now starting to sell customized bookmarks to her friends, or my child now wants me to help set up an investment account, or we're now having these really interesting conversations about money at the dinner table. So this has been the kind of most positive feedback, both from the parents and reflecting what the children have been saying. And yeah, kids are really, really enjoying it, because it's a fun way to learn something completely new. It's not boring, it's not a lecture, it's not it's not a textbook. So it's a bit of a unique book. I haven't seen one for this kind of age group, which is kind of 14 chapters and going into investing and wealth building and avoiding debt, but using kind of analogies and stories.
What was that target age group again?
Yeah, so reading age is sort of 7 to 13 years old, so they can read it on their own. But parents have been reading it with their younger kids. But actually, parents have been reading it with even their older kids, and I think that's the best bit, because a lot of the stuff in the book, most parents have never been taught themselves, so they're learning a lot. But also, it just, once they're reading it together, that's when conversations start, and that's when we can start breaking the taboo in the household about money, because we need more families just to be talking a bit more openly about money.
And I'm going to do, I guess, lightning round, if you will. I'll walk through chapter by chapter, and we'll take the next few minutes here to really pull out any points that you would like to. Let's start with how to earn money and the importance of saving. Is there anything that you want to call out from that chapter?
So the piece about earning money is really, it's about entrepreneurship. And so when I was growing up, I was just default, go to school, get good grades, get a job, kind of retire when you're 65. At no point did anyone say you could start your own business. And so I was like, oh, I wish I'd kind of known that when I was younger, when I didn't have dependents. I had no real financial obligations. It would have been a great time to take a bit of risk. It might have meant I started sort of my career later, maybe. So I really want that for all children to find, if they've got a sort of a flair or an interest for entrepreneurship. It might be some kids don't, but many kids might. And I've met some kids and they're just naturally got this kind of entrepreneurial talent, which is never nurtured at school. So schools nurture sort of academia, arts, sports, but not so much in entrepreneurship. So I really want kids to understand that is an option, and you can try, and there's so many life skills that you can learn just by trying. So like about teamwork, pricing, sales, failure, all these important pieces. And so it really helps kids to see there's different ways of earning money. And if kids do try that, even if it doesn't work out, they're going to start to learn the value of money, because they're going to start doing the work to try and earn that money. So once you see that, oh, it took me that long and I only got $10, okay, when I'm going to go and buy something, or my parents are buying something for me, okay, I've got more of appreciation of where that $10 comes from. Whereas if children never get the opportunity to earn money, it's harder for them to really get that sense of value.
You hit this one kind of hard. I was wondering if there's anything that you want to draw out of it. So failure, is there anything that you want to speak to about entrepreneurship and failure?
More so about mistakes rather than failure and stuff, because I think it's so important that children get to make mistakes when they're younger, especially when it comes to money. This is a really hard bit for parents, because parents just don't want to see their children fail at anything, and therefore can be a bit overprotective. But what we want to do is for our children to make spending decisions and kind of learn from those mistakes. So you hear a lot of stories of children saying, I want to buy this, and the parent says, no, you can't do that. It's a waste of money. And so therefore the children sort of like grow up saying, well, I don't really know what to do. I have to kind of revert back to my parents. What is a waste of money is kind of their view. Whereas actually for my daughters, we give them a bit of an allowance every week, and they save up for whatever they want to buy. And we don't sort of, if they want to buy it, they can buy it. Granted, we kind of maybe give them some say, well, what about alternatives? How much do you really want this? Don't buy it straight away. You may buy it in a week, so don't do it impulsively. But never do we say, don't do that, such that then they buy it, and if they don't play with it, and they've done this a number of times, they've saved up for like 7 weeks, bought something and never played with it, and they're like, yeah, that was a bit of a waste. And they learn that from themselves, and I think that's so much more powerful than me going, granted, in the grand scheme of things, you might say, well, that's money being wasted, that could have gone to a better cause or a better way. But I think actually that life lesson is probably worth that money that they did. And the same thing with the entrepreneurship. If they start a little business and it doesn't work out, there's no harm being done. Very little money has probably been spent. But again, they're going to learn so much from that. And then they can start another little one based on their new learnings that they've got from that. And it's so much easier as children, because clearly when we get to adults, if we make spending mistakes, it's painful, it hurts. If we start a little business, we might have dependents, we might have an impact on our future careers, etc. So yeah, just being not afraid to fail and learn from failure is such an important thing for children to learn. So yeah, and money is just a great way of helping them. So the more children get that opportunity to fail with money, the better.
So there's one here I definitely want to hit, and it is, I'm assuming this is a chapter, but it's one I pulled from the show notes, is what is investing and how does it make money grow? What do you want to call out from that chapter?
Yeah, so I think, as I think I've alluded to, the one bit that I've mentioned a story about the sort of Burger Shack is teaching children that money can grow, as that, because again, they're not going to pick this up. They're not going to see this in the real world. The only thing they're going to see with money is money being spent. So teaching kids that money can grow, and this the seed being planted, is to show that when money is being spent, that money goes to companies. Those companies are ultimately owned by people, and those people who are the people who invested. And so the story in the book is actually based on the kind of real world way in which I taught my daughters. So we've always said, you've got these trees growing, right? We're in McDonald's in Hong Kong. And I said, did you know you actually own a piece of McDonald's? And they were like, wow, this isn't what we own, a piece of this. We own this tray, this table. And they got really, really excited about it. And I'm like, yeah, and all those people queuing up to buy the burgers and Happy Meals, some of that money is yours because you own McDonald's. And McDonald's is going to use the money that we give them every month to buy create new burgers or open new restaurants so they can make more money. And the more money they make, the more money that you make. And because we invest in an index fund, so we own pretty much every company that they've heard of. So we went around the shopping mall and we saw the Apple store. And I was like, yep, you own some of that as well. So all those people buying their iPhones, and they're like, really, those people are giving me money? And you're like, yep. Granted, I didn't go through exactly how small. the principle. So they just changed their mindset from just being pure consumer to owner. And I think that's just such a powerful way. And they can literally see how their money is growing because they're seeing these people spending and seeing that some of that spending that they're just observing other people doing is some of that's going to them, and ultimately it's just that money being shifted from the spenders to the investors. And so yeah, they love that, and that's one of the key messages in the book.
I'm going to skip around a little bit here because I think this one is relative. You have a chapter on which, to your point, I don't see in a lot of, well, any books, adult or children, is how to start a business. What would you call out from that chapter? Yeah,
so this one was about so it's Gail, and she starts business and she has no idea. And so grandpa was like, well, there's loads of ideas. And the great thing about kids is that they're so creative. They're probably more creative than most adults. So if you kind of give them an idea of saying, start a business, anything you want to do, or solve a problem, make something easier, then they can do that. And so Gail, in the book, she has these petals that are in her grandpa's garden, and she has no idea. And so she writes out a sign using the petals saying, I have no idea what business to start. But then grandpa says, look, that looks beautiful, what you've just done. And so she starts making pictures out of these petals and sells them. to her friends and sees that she can actually make more money from buying the frames and putting them in there. But then she starts to get next step up. Oh, how can I make even more? And so she kind of learns from what she's done. She sort of realizes that she can make sort of a perfume from the petals. So she works with her mum to sort of work out little perfumes, etc., to sell. And then she makes confetti. So she just kind of goes free spirit with her creativity to do that. But the key piece is earlier on in the book, she's learned that it's about working smart, not just working hard. I think that's one of the key lessons about entrepreneurship, is trying to find ways in which you can take the money you've got, don't just go and spend it, but you could use that to find new business ideas. So it might mean, she couldn't go to the cinema that week because she went and bought some picture frames to do her petal pictures. But then the next week she had money to go to the cinema plus some extra money to buy even more frames and make even more money. So she kind of saw that just by holding back a little bit, she gets a lot more in the future.
So I feel that's a great wrap for us, since this is from employee to entrepreneur. However, I'll let folks know the other chapters that we didn't hit. And of course, I'll have some links for you in the show notes if you want to get the book for yourself or your children. It was How to Earn Money and the Importance of Saving. Actually, we did hit that one. The one that I'm going to skip is the difference between being rich and wealthy, why gambling scams and debt should be avoided, and why we should give to charity. So if you want to find out more about those chapters, that information will, of course, be in your show notes. But Will, I don't want to cut you off. Is there anything that we have not talked about, any plug for the book? And then before I wrap, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to talk about your website where people can find you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's the key bit. And I just stress that people who are watching this and enjoying this kind of conversation, that every child has the opportunity to grow up financially healthy and wealthy. It just takes a little bit of time for the parents to help their kids form some great money habits, and starting with just getting to save just a little bit every time they get some money is the first step to powerful change.
And this is the wrap. If you want to shout out on an upcoming show, sound off in the comments with a 5-star review. Those are the only reviews I shout out on the show, and your favorite quote from today's episode with Will. Your reviews also help people just like you find the smooth sounds of the Marcus Garrett Show. You don't have to wait another week for a podcast. You can also view exclusive content over on the YouTube channel, and you'll find this video. If you're watching this video, you're already there. Find more content at youtube.com/themarcusgarrett. I also answer frequently asked questions and post videos you can't find anywhere else. Will, while I was being nosy and researching, I also saw that you give a free guide to start investing for your kids. Please tell the people where they can find that and more about you.
Sure. So it's my website is bluetreesavings.com. On there, you'll find more information about my book. You'll find my weekly blogs, which cover pretty much most money topics. And if you want, in a way that you can both learn about a topic, but also teach your kids about that particular topic. I've also got an online course on there, which kind of just is an easier way to digest all the content that I've been producing for over 2.5 years now. And for those parents who do want to start investing with their kids or for their kids, there's a simple guide on there that just takes you step by step through. It's completely free, and hopefully gets you confident enough to start investing, I say, for yourself and for your children.
Thank you, Will, and thanks for coming on the show.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me.